An introduction to ecosystem services, sometimes called ecological services, and particularly when we're talking about payments for, it's sometimes called payments for environmental services, but the E is the same, so all the acronyms are the same. Simply, ecosystem services they provide the benefits that people get from nature. Why do we need a new word? People have known for thousands of years that nature provides useful things, especially crops, timber, fish. The idea of ecosystem services was intentionally introduced as a bigger umbrella to include those ideas and somewhat similar but broader ones. And the idea is part originated because not only is the natural environment deteriorating because of many human activities, and because it is human activities, they can be controlled in principle, but also the services that nature provides to people are deteriorating. A study by the United Nations of 24 major ecosystem services showed that 60% of them have deteriorated. And if we lose the services that nature provides to people, people are not very well off. So the idea of identifying these ecosystem goods and services, goods the things, services the processes and other benefits that we get. And that's usually shortened to ecosystem services or ecological services. The idea of the goods is still there. It's just dropped for verbal convenience. The idea of this is to help introduce a variety of tools, some of description and mapping, some of evaluation, that help expand people's awareness of those benefits. If people don't fully recognize the benefits that nature provides, then they cannot necessarily understand them, protect them, and do something about them, especially the more abstract ones. We understand cutting timber, but the more abstract ones and the more ones that are more distant in time and in space. If the watershed is filtering the water so that it is cleaner for people 50 miles downstream, they are quite distant in space from that benefit. They may not appreciate that nature has done something that otherwise would be very costly for them. The existence of watersheds, I keep using water because it's the most common example, often filters, absorbs spring runoff so that the water rises slightly but does not flood. The occasional year which has high water and would otherwise flood the city does not take place if some of that protection is still in place. And that's a protection that's quite distant in time. Every 10 years you have high water and perhaps you're not being flooded. These are the things that we can identify and label as ecosystem services and start to protect them because people do not fully appreciate that they are benefiting from these things. And there are different tools available to identify, measure these ecosystem services. And I set this up as a bit of a funnel, nature being over here, the full aspect of ecosystems, a funnel. Sub-parts of nature are used by people. Those are the ecosystem services. An arrow, they provide benefits to people. And the benefits have worth, various kinds of value. There are a whole series of tools that you will hear about today about estimating the value of these things, which may not trade in a marketplace and have prices, but we still want to figure out what they are worth. The commonest tools are ascribing dollar values, but that is not the only tool. There are ways to ascribe aesthetic values, to rank values, to map ecosystem services, and figure out what they might have as a value. And this is a necessary step because if we want to protect those ecosystem services, particularly if the beneficiaries are very numerous, but they get a small benefit, like those citizens whose water is purified, oftentimes an agency, a government agency or an NGO, might, on the behalf of many beneficiaries, try to protect particular ecosystem services by a variety of mechanisms. And one you'll hear about today, down there, are payments for ecosystem services. Because once you have an estimate of some kind of value, and especially when you have a particular group of individuals who might have the ability to protect it, such as agricultural producers or other identifiable owners of land, then you have a mechanism available by which they can be included in the protection process. And I've got an arrow back here because if there is a mechanism in place for providing payments for ecosystem services, then the people who receive those payments will probably have, first of all, they have to protect the service. That's what they're being paid for. But there will also probably be some kind of monitoring in which people would check on the quality of the service or somewhere down the stream if the benefits are being maintained. So during the day-to-day, you'll hear people talk about the biophysical world, the benefits people get, the values. They will sometimes be using different words, and you'll see different words in different documents, but it's all part of this chain which leads to payments for ecosystem services. I suspect in the T behavior, which is coming next, they use a little cascade diagram with boxes and arching arrows. But the idea is the same, that there's an interconnection between nature and people. Different people study and examine different paces along the way, but it's all for this broader purpose of protecting the services that people get that are frequently more diffuse than are recognized before.